Hi guys, and welcome back to the Crawl Corner. We're here once again in this wonderful ranty corner for all things Formula E. So the Sao Paulo E-Prix has come to a close, and what could be said other than, wow, that was a good finish, that wasn't it? That was a great finish. Formula E is well and truly back after a mundane start to the season for Formula E standards anyway. This fourth race has certainly come and kicked off once again and delivered us the goods. It's been a fantastic race. I have absolutely loved it, and it was great to see a familiar name and a familiar face back on the top step of the podium after such a long time away from it. Of course, we'll go through all of that in a moment. So if you've never seen this series before, I award the drivers out a maximum of 10 points based on their race weekend's performance, and I go all the way down to 0 if they have a particularly bad one. Take a look out for bonus points though. They're sometimes an offer. Some drivers that do something extra special during a race, and on the rare occasion I do award minus points to those drivers that do something extra special, but for all the wrong reasons. Let's take a look at the current Crawl Corner standings then. They're on the screen now for you to take a look at. Have a look and see where your favourite driver is. And based on this race overall, can you see them going up? Can you see them going down? There was a lot of drivers that really excelled this race, and there was a lot of drivers that didn't really do much and were quite anonymous throughout most of it, weren't they? So yes, we're going to find out and dig deep what I'm going to score the drivers, and play along as well. See what you would have scored them as we go through. But without further ado then, let's kick things off with the race winner. Sam Bird. Wow, oh wow, oh wow. What a fantastic effort by Sam Bird. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. I cannot believe he took the victory. He was looking incredibly washed up, wasn't he? It must be said, although he has had a couple of good races. The Diriyah rounds were quite interesting. He had some good performances there. And this time around, he was looking really strong. It was a great qualifying there in P5, and then in the race he was the leader throughout quite a lot of it, wasn't it? The first 5 or 6 laps were the Porsches that were sort of playing around with each other. Costa came from nowhere to lead. I don't know how that happened. One minute we were watching a replay and Costa was about 6th. The next thing he was leading it. But of course the trouble is with the Brazilian E-Prix in particularly, the Sao Paulo race, the circuit is heavily reliant on this slipstreaming effect once again to gain efficiency out of the battery. The whole Gen 3 era is really assigned to this sort of concept, but in certain circuits it exaggerates it further, and this is one of those circuits where it exaggerates that to the limit, so no one really wants to lead it. But Sam Bird led a hell of a lot of laps, but due to the fact that everyone else was bunching and backing up and tripping up over each other behind, it was like they were losing their energy because they were still fighting, even though it weren't for the lead, if that makes sense. Because Sam was, a nice cushion. He was first by about half a second. He knew no one was going to overtake him behind for quite some time. And everyone else were like side by side, so then they have to use more energy coming out the corner to battle with each other to stay side by side. So it seemed very counterintuitive to actually be in the pack this time because, as mentioned, they were just tripping up over each other. So I think in the end, Sam Bird actually punching a hole for everyone didn't actually disadvantage him that much. With about a few laps to go, of course the overtake from Mitch Evans came on Sam, and Mitch Evans did take the lead of the race, and it was looking like that was going to be it then, because Sam sort of ebbed away a little bit, didn't he? He was always within a few tenths, but he came down that long start-finish straight and was never looking like he was going to be close enough to mount an attack until the last lap, where he came out of that corner and was really, really close, but chose not to do anything in turn 1 and bided his time. It then looked, as we got into the mid part of the section where the chicane is, about turn 6, turn 7, turn 8, that sort of area, as we came down the other back straight and into the chicane again, he was looking for a move there. You could see him darting around and jiggling around, and the dust was sort of flying up offline. Sam Bird was looking at that point, and you knew really then he was angry. He was ready to go for it. He got the fire in his belly, and he was going for that victory. And then as we came with a couple of corners left to go, he sent it. He absolutely sent it, and it paid off. And it was great, respectful racing room between the two of them as well. Mitch Evans didn't chop him off, didn't overly defend. Sam Bird didn't make a ridiculous lunge up the inside. It was just a fair, I've got you move, and he was making it clear that I'm coming through, but it was a fair and justified move. And then, of course, he showed him the door on the second to last corner, and then on the last corner, Mitch Evans was not able to get any way through or around him, and Sam Bird took the victory. What a fantastic effort by Sam. It's been a great weekend. It's been a resilient weekend by Sam Bird, qualifying 5th, finishing 1st. It's 10 points, isn't it? It's got to be 10 points. McLaren's first win as well. Let's not forget that in Formula E. McLaren's first win. It's a fantastic effort. Well done to them for that. Honestly, it's a perfect 10 to Sam Bird for that. What a stunning, stunning effort. I am so pleased for Sam. I honestly thought he was washed up and done, and a lot of people have said the same. He was like the Ricciardo of Formula 1, but I really hope this isn't the Ricciardo of Formula E, where we see one victory and then he's back to his usual self of tumbling down the order, failing to pick up points in a car that should. So we'll see how it goes for Sam Bird, but for now, great positivity, really happy. It's re-energised Sam, and I'm sure he will come back fighting in Tokyo in a couple of weeks' time, and I'm sure he's hungry for another podium, if not the top step once again. It looks like the McLaren team have found something during this extended break period, where they've been able to update the software and maybe just got a little bit more efficiency out of that car, and it's really played dividends. So yeah, perfect 10 Sam Bird. What a way to kick the cruel corner off with. What a way to kick Formula E back off after the extended break that it did have. It certainly delivered, didn't it? Congratulations, Sam. 10 to you. And in second place, we come to Jaguar with Mitch Evans, of course. It's a great podium for Mitch Evans. His first of the season. It's all been about his teammate the first half of this year. But this time around, it certainly isn't. And it's all been about Mitch Evans this race, picking up P2 after leading so close to the end. Could have took it, but didn't quite. Good qualifying performance once again inside the duels and doing well there. And then in the race itself, was happy to be in the bunch behind. Attacked Sam Bird, got him initially, and then on the final lap of the race, again, great respectful racing room between the pair of them, allowed a fantastic overtake for the lead. Very fair on both parts. And unfortunately, Mitch Evans just missed out this time around. Had he won the race, he would have taken the championship lead as well, I think. I think it's something crazy like that, because a win's very crucial, as you know, in Formula E. Because where is he now? Is he second? No, I'm being silly, aren't I? I'm sure I'm being silly. I don't know. Anyway, I'm not quite sure where Mitch Evans is now, but I think the victory would have certainly helped him close. I mean, it's 7 points, isn't it? So we know that. But yeah, overall for Mitch Evans, I'm giving him a solid 8. I think he deserves a solid 8 for that. And what a fantastic effort by him. Didn't really put a wheel wrong. The strategy was correct. Did really well in that front as well. And overall, a great drive by Mitch Evans. Unlucky to miss out on the victory, but again, very good, respectful racing room. 8 to Mitch Evans. And in third place, scoring his second consecutive podium this season, I don't think I would have been saying that at the start of this year, it's Ola Roland. What a fantastic drive. Ola Roland, I mean, the pace of that car was fantastic anyway. Got himself up from 11th on the grid, didn't quite make the duels, and then was able to just, get himself up inside the top 5, and everyone's going, look at that Nissan's doing well with Roland behind it. And you think, yeah, it is. And then it did even better, because on the last corner, Jake Dennis and Pascal Verline went to fighting, pushed each other wide, and forgot that Ola Roland was even there. And Ola Roland just slipped himself up the inside and said, thanks very much, lads, bye, I'll take the rostrum, thank you very much for the bubbly. And he put himself in that position and did really well. It was a fantastic last lap. I was so excited. Like 3 corners from the end, we get a move for the lead, and then in the last corner of the last lap, there's a battle there for a podium, and the P5 guy goes, I'll have it, lads. No dramas. Ola Roland revitalised, re-energised after his tough venture at Mahindra, of course, and departing ways mid-season last year for the Nissan role that was coming this season. And he's done a great job for Nissan, hasn't he, these last couple of races? And Nissan have provided him a car that is capable of this result. So fantastic effort all round. And Ola Roland, it's a perfect end to him as well. It can be no less, can it? Fantastic effort. Well done, Ola Roland. Stunning job. 10 points to you. As mentioned, in 4th place, it is Pascal Verline in 4th place. Yes, he was trying to go for 3rd and still ended up 4th. So, yeah, even though he did overtake the 3rd place car. So he didn't lose anything, did Pascal? So the lunge he made didn't actually cost him anything in theory. But, had it played out differently, he could have had a podium spot. And for his championship chances, this is actually better that it worked out this way. He finishes P4 still, but Jake Dennis is behind him, not ahead of him, and that's the championship protagonist sort of points. So yeah, didn't work out for him in that sense, but he stayed where he was. So yeah, a good effort by Pascal Verline there. Pole position as well, let's not forget that. So that nabs a couple of points for him as well. This race itself, though, I feel like it should have been more from Porsche. It really should have been. I was expecting a podium at minimum for one of them, mainly Pascal Verline. But good to see Costa back up here as well and battling. The early phases of the race, they were playing team games. James. Da Costa was giving a toe to Pascal Verline, of course, in the early phases, teaming up, trying to get the attack modes, and then people coming out ahead. It was crazy, wasn't it? They were holding each other up so much in that hairpin that cars were going for attack and coming out in the same position, if not a better position than where they were before they went in attack. It was crazy, really, really crazy how much everything was bottling up at that hairpin at turn 3. So yeah, for Pascal Verline overall, solid drive. Shame he missed out on the podium there when he looked like he got it. But in terms of the championship, this has actually been a solid one for him, although did expect a little bit more. So it's going to be 7.5 for me for Pascal Verline. Done nothing wrong really, but there was other drivers out there that did just that little bit better. And finishing in 5th place, we come to Jake Dennis. Oh dear, it was on for P3 until that last corner where Pascal Verline lunged it up the inside. It didn't work out and then lost out to Roland, as mentioned, and he lost out to Verline as well, so lost 2 places in one move. Shame that really, it was a solid drive up until that point, but Jake Dennis, I expected again a little bit more from him this race. The qualifying wasn't great, it was okay, but nothing overly special. And again, you know, he leaves himself with work to do in the race, climbed himself up there, but then lost out on the last corner, which is a shame, really, must be said. Jake Dennis, though, you know, it seems to be a bit up and down for Andretti at the moment. They're either really up there or fighting in this mid-pack, and it's not doing him any favours. You know, he's getting involved in the little taps and the tips and the tups, and that's going to cost him overall. You know, the car's not going to be quite right. But overall, it was a good effort until that last corner, and yet we know Verline lunged it, but it was a fair move from Verline. It was nothing untowards and nothing that we're not expecting to see in Formula E either. And overall, for Jake Dennis, I've had to go for 6.5 because I think there should have been a lot more points out of that race than there were. You know, the main championship protagonist not finishing the race. Pascal Verline ended up gaining a couple of points on him as well. We know it's early days, but we know for a fact that Andretti and Jake Dennis really do want to retain that title. But for now, it's just not looking likely, is it? Too inconsistent, and these little bits just keep adding up, don't they? You know, you can see where points have been lost already. Here, for example, it's easily 5 points lost, and maybe should have been more as well, had the qualifying been better. So yeah, overall for Jake Dennis, 6.5 for me. He's done okay. It's a shame about the last corner. If that last corner hadn't happened, he'd have probably been on for about an 8. But it's a case of what could have been for Jake Dennis. So 6.5 to him. And then we come to Antonio Felix da Costa, picking up his first points of the season, which is mad to say. But a solid qualifying effort meant that he was in a good position to start the race. As mentioned already with da Costa, talking about Verline, there was this moment where we went to a replay to see what happened with Nico Muller losing his front wing, I think it was. And we cut back, and I'm like, hang on a minute, how's da Costa leading? Like, I'm sure it was 5th a minute ago. So I don't really know what happened there, but he was obviously down the straight, people lifting and coasting, he just obviously breezed past him. Obviously a poor strategy because Verline was in the lead to try and get a bit of slipstream off of da Costa to help Verline later on. Clearly a team tactic that played hands, and every other driver was quite happy to let him through at that point. In the race itself, it was looking good though, wasn't it, for a good finish. A top 5 was on the cards, I would say. So the fact that he finishes just behind Jake Dennis, P6 overall, is a good effort. Again, expected more from the Porsches considering where they were. But it didn't quite work out like that, but they did better than another team that started higher than them. That's all I'll say. We'll get to those drivers in a moment. But for Antonio Felix da Costa, good to see him back in the points again. Good to see him have a good solid weekend overall as well, with the strong qualifying to back up it. Didn't make it into the duels though, did he? That was the trouble. But was able to make ground and gain places. So, you know, one of those things. So I'm going to award him a solid 7 for da Costa. I think that's a fair score, I do. I know I've only given Verline a half a point more, but yeah, I think da Costa overall did a good job. You know, the qualifying wasn't there, I'm aware of that, but the racing itself got himself into a good position and stayed in the points. So it's an encouraging start for da Costa, and I hope he could take that momentum going forward into the rest of the season. For now, it's 7 points to da Costa. Probably generous by a point, that to be fair, on reflection, but even so, good to see him in the points and good to see Porsche's first double point score of the year. 7 to da Costa. And then we come to JeanEric Vergne in the Techeetah. Oh, Jesus O'Reilly. Where did this all go wrong? P3 on the grid. P3 on the grid for JeanEric Vergne. Lining up alongside his teammate who was P2. and they just went backwards. I mean, initially to start off with, you think, fine, get yourself in the pack, get a slipstream, that's fine, energy saving, perfect. But at one point, they were well down outside the top 10 almost. They were like 10th and 11th. It just looked like it was a bad strategy, really. It's got to be honest, I think Techeetah are going to look at that and go, we got something drastically wrong there. And I think it was mainly strategy, to be honest with you. I think the drivers have done what they were told, but unfortunately, it wasn't the right call. So, for JeanEric Vergne, it's a frustrating 6.5. I don't think I can give him any more than that, as much as I do think it was a full team game, and I think it was a team error with the strategy they went on and elected to do both drivers with as well, not even split the strategies. It was very, very strange, but early leaders, strong qualifying, there should have been more than this. You know, worst case scenario, those cars should have been 4th and 5th, 5th and 6th, somewhere around there. But as it stands, they just weren't, were they? And almost really lucky as well not to lose out to Gunter at the end, the pair of them. So, you know, it could have been even lower than where they finished. So, yeah, unfortunately for JeanEric Vergne, 6.5 to him. A very disappointing day for Techeetah after such a strong and promising qualifying. And of course behind JeanEric Vergne is Stoffel Vandoorne, his teammate. As mentioned, he qualified P2 and was just 0.02 of a second away from nabbing the pole lap time away from Pascal Verline. It was such a strong, close qualifying, was that final battle between those two drivers. Really edgy as seat stuff, and it looked like we were on for a good race from that moment, and it did deliver. But sadly the Techeetahs weren't involved. The first few laps, they tumbled out down the order towards the latter half of the top 10, and we didn't really see much of them since. So again, I think it's the strategy error, same as what I think with JeanEric Vergne. It just didn't play out right. I think there's two frustrated drivers there at Techeetah thinking, where did it go wrong? Where did it go wrong? They had the efficiency, they had the pace, but I just think they let themselves go too far back, and then after that second safety car period, when it was full attack to the end at that point, really, they were just too far back to not be able to make any gains on possible percentage that they'd saved. So yeah, same score, 6.5 to Vandoorne as it is for JeanEric Vergne. A frustrating weekend for Techeetah. Should have been a hell of a lot more. And finishing in 9th place, we come to Maxi Gunt, who had every bloody component changed on his car. So he was facing a 20-place grid drop, because of a changing of a gearbox, wasn't it, actually, to start with. So they thought, well, that means we're last, effectively. I mean, even if they qualify pole, they're still only starting 21st. So they thought, right, we'll change the inverter as well while we're at it, and we'll change a few other bits. So that meant they'd ended up with like a 40-place grid drop. So then they weren't able to serve all of that in the race, of course. So they decided, right, okay, what we're going to do then is start at the back of the grid. We'll take a 10-second stop-go penalty as well, take that early on, and we'll just see what happens during the race. But they clearly believed that what they changed was going to be beneficial to Gunter's race. And it clearly was, wasn't it? The first safety car period came out. Gunter had already served that 10-second stop-go, so was on the back of the pack then. Fantastic effort. Then the next safety car came out, and he was already up to the likes of 15th, 13th, somewhere around there. He was on the fringes of the top 10 already. Got himself to this 9th area, then was able to get to 8th, then stalled and stagnated a little bit there, dropped back down to 9th again, and then on the last lap, I've seen it afterwards, but we didn't see it during the race itself because we were too busy watching the battle up front, and rightly so. But he made a lunge at the chicane. He tried to go up the inside of Vandoorne. In fact, I think he'd already got Vandoorne and was then trying to move on Vergne, and it went wrong, and he locked up. So he had 8th, and he tried to go for 7th, and it went wrong, and he lost out and got 9th. So he did lose a place on that last lap, unfortunately, for Maxi Gunt, which was a shame. Yeah, a big shame for that, because that could have doubled his points tally from 2 to 4 there if he just maybe bided his time for another corner or didn't make the move on Vergne. But he was going for it, it was feeling good. I totally understand why he did it. Max Gunter has been a reformed character this year, hasn't he? None of the silly errors that he made at the start of last season have creeped into this one so far, and he really has been a great asset to the Maserati squad. Looking from that 40-place grid drop, so obviously starting at the back of the grid regardless, and then as well in the race itself having to serve that stop-go, you think, right, it might come our way, it might not, but we'll just see how it goes, we'll just see how the car is. It played into his hands, he played a blinder, he picked up some points. Fantastic effort. Can't ask much more than that a Maxi Gunter. So for that reason, I'm awarding him 9 points. I'm just taking a point off, and it is very harsh, I will admit, but I'm just taking a point off for that little mistake on that last lap, which potentially cost him a position, and if he'd have got the move done, It could have been on for 6 points instead of 2, 4 points instead of 2. So he got the worst case scenario out of what potentially could have been a 7th place finish. I am being incredibly harsh and nitpicky there, but I'm only doing that because I do see Maxi Gunt as a fantastic driver now. And when I see these little errors creep in, I just need to just punish him that little bit because I do want to see him thrive. And if he continues the way he's going, we're on for a future champion here. I really do believe that. So yeah, Maxi Gunt, a fantastic charge through the pack. Not his fault at all why we're starting at the back of the grid and having to say there's 10-second stop go. But whatever they did to the car, it's reformed it. It's made it a lot better for Gunter. He's absolutely loving it. He's on a mission as well himself at the moment and doing a fantastic job to pick up a couple of points for Maserati. Could have been just a couple more though. 9-2 Maxi Gunter. And picking up the final point, it is Sebastian Buemi, and he doubled his tally because he got the fastest lap inside the top 10, of course. So he picks up 2 points for finishing 10th. Not a bad effort there by Buemi. The Envision cars were very anonymous this race. They were speaking to Sylvain Philippe, the head of Envision, and he just said that the car just wasn't really suited to this track. We were struggling with the efficiency and we're not getting the advantage of the slipstream that other teams were, which is very strange considering that the car's identical. But obviously whatever powertrain and whatever setup they're using just didn't work out their race this weekend, unfortunately, and they were very much just here to pick up what they could. He picked up a point, he doubled his tally because of the fastest lap as well. Good effort overall. So for Sebastian Buemi, it's going to be a solid 6 to him. I don't think there was really much more left in that Envision. It's a shame to see him drop off this weekend because normally they're always up there fighting inside the top 5. But yeah, at least it's a couple of points to pick up at a weekend that didn't suit you. Let's put it that way. So yeah, 6 to Buemi. Not much more to say about him. Just a bit frustrated overall. And then we come to Sasha Fenestraz, just missing out on the final points paying position here, finishing in P11. One Nissan up there on the podium. Fenestraz, very lonely race. Didn't see much of him at all, to be honest with you, and that's a great shame to say, really. Fenestraz has been one of the good rookies of the last couple of years, it must be said. But this time around, it was very much an off weekend for him. Not a great qualifying, not a great race. Very anonymous and still not picking up a point while his teammate's on the podium. So that's a bit of a shame in itself. And again, can't really say much about his race because he didn't do anything. We didn't see much of him. He wasn't really doing anything at all, to be honest with you, I mean, you probably saw an on-board from him when someone else was bumping and topping, but it was just all the bunching up. Nothing really spectacular or special happened in his race. And his teammate delivered a solid points finish, a solid podium finish. So for that reason, it's going to be 3 to Sasha Fenestraz. Don't want to overly criticise him too much, but at the same time, points should have been possible there with that car. When you see what Ola Roland did, when you see what Sam Bird did with the same powertrain, there's Nissan powertrains in those McLarens as well. So yeah, there was other Nissan cars ahead of him. He really didn't deliver this time around, unfortunately. So just 3 points to Sasha Fenestraz. Finishing in 12th place, we come to Eduaro Mortara in the Mahindra. Oh, God, I thought points might have just been possible there. A great qualifying. The first time Mahindra have been in the duels for over a year. It was the Saudi races last year, 2023, the last time they were in the duels, and this time around he qualified in P6, which is a good effort. It's a really good effort by Mortara in that sense. He was running around 7th, 8th most of the race, then he got down to like 9th and 10th after he had an attack mode and then lost out positions and didn't really look to be doing too well then, but you just think, hang on to the point. Hang on to that point. Mahindra could really do with that. And then there was some sort of tiff and taff between him and his teammate, and I don't know who caused it because we were watching a replay of it, but as we started to watch the replay of it, the commentators reported that Nick Cassidy was in the wall, and we immediately cut away from that, never talked about that incident again that happened at turn 1 with the 2 Mahindras, and Nick Cassidy was in the wall, and that was it. So that took the headlines away from it, but there were 2 Mahindras there. One was there, one was there. This one massively outbraked itself. They went down the escape road, had to come to a complete halt and get going again. This is when Mortara was on the fringes of the top 10 and when Nick de Vries was sort of like that 12th area and was on his way up. So I don't know who was where in that situation, but both Mahindras had to cut the turn 1, then come to a stop, then get going again, and they dropped down to something like 15th and 17th. It wasn't pretty. It was a silly error, whoever made that lunge up the inside. And I don't know which one it was, and I can't find any footage or any evidence that that ever happened, but I know I saw it. So, unfortunately for Eduaro Mortara, maybe a point could have been possible. He could have been where Buemi was, but it wasn't to be. So for that reason, I awarded him 7, a solid 7. Can't knock the qualifying. The race itself, it looked like he was going to be able to pick up a point or two throughout most of it. Then there was that incident with his teammate, whether it was Mortara's fault or De Vries' fault, I'm really not sure. I couldn't apportion blame to either one of them, but one of them was at fault. And then that was it then. Unfortunately, points were very much begging from that moment on. But a 12th place finish is still a decent effort for a Mahindra. But it should have really been points, I think. But yeah, 7 to Mortara. Another encouraging race by him. It's just frustrating times, isn't it? It really, really is for Mahindra, and I hope they get it together. And yeah, unfortunately, 7 to Mortara, but a solid drive. Just could have been that little bit more. Next up, in unlucky for some, P13, it is Lucas Degrassi in the Apt. Oh dear, his home Grand Prix, his home E-Prix, I should say. Didn't really go to plan, did it? It must be said, unfortunately, for Degrassi. Wing damage, wing off. Get really messy Degrassi this race. It must be said he was making contact with a hell of a lot of cars, bumping, bashing, boring around and bumbling around and not really being able to do anything impressive. His teammate Nico Muller, of course, got himself into the duels and a strong position there. P7, P8 was it for him? Lucas Degrassi didn't make it into the duels at all and was quite far down the order. So a shame in that sense. And then the race itself never looked for points. Didn't look like it was going to be points. Wing damage and the whole front wing missing. You know, errors at turn 1. I think he hit the back of someone as well, didn't he, at one point, which finished the wing off totally. Either way, he just didn't go to plan at all, unfortunately, for Lucas Degrassi. And that's why it's going to be just 2 points to him for that. Not a great race at all, sadly, for Degrassi, and really, really struggling in that Apt car. We was expecting him to deliver and bring a lot of valuable knowledge to the team to help him go forward, but at the moment, Nico Muller's putting in the more impressive drives and the more impressive qualifying performances, and Lucas Degrassi, we're just not seeing that fire from him, unfortunately, or when we are, is making contact, and that's not the fire we need. We don't need damage, we need some good, clean, hard overtaking to get himself up there, and ramming people out of the way and damaging your car is not the way to do it. So yeah, 2 to Lucas Degrassi. A very, very, very visual weekend. We did see plenty of him, but for all the wrong reasons. And then we come to Nick de Vries in the next of the Mahindra cars, the second Mahindra. As mentioned, there's nothing really more I can add than what I already added to Mortara. One of those Mahindras were to blame for their downfall of being this far down the order. They would have been further down the order as well, of course. Well, De Vries would have been, had it not been for the 5-second time penalty Natto incurred, or for the disqualification of Sete Camera. He would have been lower down the order than this. It would have been 16th for him. So yeah, P14, his teammate P12. His teammate up there, good qualifying. De Vries, still a relative rookie to the Gen 3 era, and I will give him that benefit of the doubt. But it needs to start, you know, there needs to be performance and good effort. And there were a good effort. He climbed his way up to the fringe of the points, and then something went wrong with those Mahindras, and it's one of their faults, and I'm not sure who. But yeah, for De Vries overall, I'm giving him a middle of the row 5, and I think I was generous by a point there, to be honest with you. Yep, still a relative rookie to the Gen 3 era, but with his expertise, his knowledge, all that time they've had in winter, well, I say winter, but the time they've had in this extended break, you know, there should have been plenty of simulator work, there should have been plenty of work behind the scenes and learning and understanding mentally what the car needs to do and what you need to do with it. And, you know, there should have been that little bit of a step up, and we've just not seen that yet. So, unfortunately, Nick de Vries, middle of the row 5 to him, and a weekend of what could have been for Mahindra. The second of the Maseratis is up next with Darl Vala, and unfortunately for him, this was a very anonymous race weekend for him. He was running round at the back for such a long time. In the end, he's only finished ahead of a handful of cars that were either damaged, compromised, retired, etc. It would have been lower down the order again as well had it not been for the penalties incurred by other drivers after the race or during the race, but either way. Darl Vala is getting 3. Again, it's a generous 3 because he is the rookie of Formula E, and he has come into an era that is really more advanced than any of the others were, but he's just not adapting quite quick enough. Again, during the off-season, I was expecting a little bit of game from him, understanding the car in the simulator and things like that to really develop his skills, but this weekend is an anomaly in terms of the slipstreaming effect, and he is going to be a rookie in that respect as well. Of course, no other championship ever really needs that. But it was too anonymous for my liking, unfortunately, even with the inexperience of Formula E. The Diriyah races, he was getting stuck in. It didn't go his way, but he was getting stuck in, But this time around, there was just nothing really to see. So, unfortunately, 3 points to Darl Vala. Still a rookie, still giving him the chances and opportunities, of course, but this time around was a bit of a hit for me, thinking, that patch where you think, is he gonna adapt, or is it gonna be a struggle season? But for now, 3 points to Darl Vala. I really hope he gets good. I really hope he finds his feet. We have seen something from him in each race, and this time around it's been nothing. So that's like a black mark, really. But 3 to Darl Vala. Then we come to Dan Ticktum in the first of the ERTs, and a very anonymous weekend by their standards, I'm afraid to say. There's nothing that can be reported. I mean, they were at they just were nowhere again. This last half of the field really didn't do much at all, unfortunately. Very anonymous. Didn't see much of them. They were just very incognito, and were still incredibly close at the end of the race to running out of battery power. It was not good. So the ERT really struggling with their efficiency once again, and overall just no pace at all. Back of the pack, you'd have thought maximum slipstream in there, still couldn't manage. So yeah, Dan Ticktum in the middle of row 5. What a frustrating season this has been for him. Last season there were signs of promise from this Gen 3 era that the efficiency weren't always there, but on a good day they had chance for points. This time around, this season is really not looking likely, is it? So yeah, those 2 points I think are really crucial that Sete Camera picked up a couple of rounds ago, because I don't think there's anything coming anytime soon, judging by that performance. But yeah, middle row 5 to Ticktum. Not his fault at all. I just think the car is wholly to blame at this point. But again, there's far better drivers doing far better things with less equipment. Mortara, frustrating weekend by him, and should have been points, but at least he's up there fighting for them. We're not seeing nothing at all from Ticktum at the moment, and it's a bit concerning. But yeah, 5 to Dan Ticktum. Shame. A difficult start. Next up, we come to Norman Natto in the Andretti, of course. The second of the Andrettis in this race. And there we have it, a Lotterer of the Week to Norman Natto. The driver that took Lotterer's place has been awarded a Lotterer. Yeah, unfortunately for Norman Natto this weekend, it's been very, very anonymous, hasn't it? And there's no excuses for Norman. Qualifying himself down in like 7th. Oh, it was last, wasn't he, actually? He wasn't even qualifying himself down in 17th place. He qualified last. He was at the back of the grid. Only Maxi Gunt was behind him in the end. But yeah, effectively qualified himself last. In the race itself, only really got as high as 16th, 17th. I think I briefly saw him inside the top 12, but he was never running round in points. Then picked up a 5-second time penalty for a collision with the back of Nico Muller's car, where he stuffed it into the back of him. He took his front wing off. He had to go down the escape road. Nico Muller had a half spin. It just wasn't great at all. And yeah, that was that really. That put pay to his race. Picked up a 5-second time penalty, crossed the line 14th, I think, and then drops down to here with the 5-second time penalty. So, yeah, Norman Natto gets a Lotterer of the Week for that, unfortunately. Jake Dennis on the fringes of a podium, missed out on the final corner, criticised him for that. I definitely criticise Norman Natto then, don't I, for not picking up any points at all, and at no point during this weekend looking like points were possible. So, yeah, Norman Natto, his first Lotterer of the Week this season. Next up, we come to Robin Freins in the Envision. I believe he was actually classified as retirement in the end, and I didn't even see it. So, yeah, Robin Freins, nothing really much I can say, unfortunately. I didn't see him retire, but on the Formula E website, declared him as a DNF. So, Strange one there, very, very strange. But yeah, first of the DNFs, of course. The maximum they can score is 5 points for the DNFs and DSQs, is the maximum they can score. And for Robin Fries, it's going to be 2. 2 points. You know, Buemi was up there on the fringe of the points at least. Frantz, okay, fair enough. I didn't even see him retire in the race. Yeah, Robin Frantz just nowhere at all. So, you know, unfortunately, just 2 points to him. Envision having a difficult weekend. Out of a maximum of 5, though, that's not bad. You know, if he'd have finished the race, I'd have probably given him 4. So that'd have been fair enough. But yeah, unfortunately for Robin Frantz, just 2 points this weekend. Didn't set the world alight. Forgot he was even in the race. Didn't even notice he'd retired. So I don't know if that's an error on the website or not. But I cannot remember him retiring. But there you go. Robin Frantz retired. And 2 points to him. Then we come to Jake Hughes in the second of the Neon McLarens. One driver up there taking victory, the other one down here as a late retirement in the race. Shame for Jake, really, really is a shame. Didn't get into the duels like his teammate managed, and in the race itself, stayed around the bottom half of the top 15, it must be said. Didn't make any progress at all, but did have an issue with his battery. Found out from the McLaren squad after doing the debriefs and everything they do on YouTube and things like that, and interviews and Jake's Twitter. They had an issue with the car early on. So, you know, there was some sort of issue there where it was down on power compared to the other cars. And then the race, it developed and got worse and worse and worse. And then, of course, towards the end of the race, retired from the race. So, yeah, unfortunate by Jake there. But at the same time, you know, we've seen cars with a lot of damage still able to drag home points. And I don't know how or what that issue was, because they've just said it was an issue that affected the performance. So I'm tipping battery issue, heating issues, overheating as well, of course, will seriously affect the performance of the car. So could it have been self-inflicted? I don't know. So I've been really cautious to not give Jake a lotterer, because I think if there's an issue with the car, then no, it's not his fault. He is a retirement, so can only score a maximum of 5 anyway, and I've given him a solitary 1, because the qualifying performance was poor, and the race itself, yeah, okay, an issue develops early on, but it could have been self-inflicted. So I've been on the fence with this a little bit. I've not awarded a lottery, but I have still been quite harsh. And, you know, Jake, love him as a guy, really do think he's a great driver. I think he has delivered a lot to the McLaren squad. But his teammate this weekend just really had the upper hand on him before the issues arose. You know, just qualifying alone, there was a big deficit between the two of them. So yeah, Jake Hughes, just a solitary point this weekend. But I think, you know, judging by that, McLaren, they've learnt things in this off-season, in this peak period of not doing much, you know, this quiet period, should we say. And I think Jake's going to come back strong for Tokyo and beyond. But for now, it's just a solitary 1 point to Jake. I'd love to find out what that issue was, to see if it was more self-inflicted or not. If I find anything out, I might give Jake a couple more points next time around, because I don't want to harshly criticise a driver if it was a big fault and nothing to do with the driver, you know, but there we go. But from what I know now, it's not lottery worthy, but it's just a 1 to Jake Hughes. And then we come to Nick Cassidy in the Jaguar after such a strong start to the season. Podium, podium, podium. He was telling everyone in the interviews, wasn't he, that, oh yeah, you know, I could not finish this race and I'll still lead the championship. Yeah, oh dear, I think he's cursed himself there, didn't he? Qualifying itself, he didn't make it into the duel, so that was a difficult start for him already. Then in the race itself, got himself inside the top 7. Picked up a bit of front wing damage, hitting the back of, I believe, it was Jake Dennis, was it, that he tagged? Anyway, broke a bit of his front wing off. It was much of a muchness. You take the risk then, don't you? Do you keep going, or do you pit and replace that wing? Elected to keep going, of course, because he'd lose out too much, but unfortunately, the loss went in his way, unfortunately. His front wing failed completely. At the fastest point, went under his wheels, couldn't turn, and stuffed it straight into the wall. Made a big smelly mess of that Jaguar. Ripped the rear wheel off it, which is very unusual to see wheels come off of any race car this day and age with the tethers and everything. So the angle that he hit it, ripped the rear wheel off. He probably has to have a gearbox now and things like that. So big damage in that sense. The front suspension was all shagged. It was just a right smelly mess when he finished with it. And yeah, unfortunately for Nick Cassidy, no points on the board for him. Could have been a top 5 possible there, I would say. And I'm going to give him 2 points for that effort, because that's really all he does deserve. Just didn't go his way this race weekend. That happens in Formula E sometimes. If he'd have pitted for the wing, could he have had the charge through the field like Gunter? Maybe. Could have picked up a point or 2 that way. You know, hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? And if he'd have pitted, maybe he could have still scraped a point towards the end there with all the dramas that were happening during the race. But as it was, he elected not to, paid the price for it. And it's just 2 points on the cruel room to Nick Cassidy. And then we come to Nico Muller in the second of the apps. Now, apps had a horrible weekend after such a great start. As mentioned, Nico Muller got into the duels inside the top 10 in qualifying. Fantastic effort for that. The app Cooper are looking okay in that certain situation. The race itself, lost a few places, down to that 10th, 11th area, down with Mortara, thinking, right, he's on the fringes of the points here, but maybe a point or two is possible. And then he picked up wing damage. He hit the back of someone. I can't remember who he hit, but he hit the back of someone. Damaged his front wing completely. He got rear-ended at one point as well, didn't he, by an over-exuberant car. It was just a mess. In the end, he had to pit for a nose. Came out. There was no other safety cars that helped him or assisted him after that front wing change in the end. And yeah, that was it. And then he elected to retire from the race. So yeah, Nico Muller, a retirement from this race. And in fact, I think he retired after Nick Cassidy, so I don't know why Formula E's put it round. They do it wrong, Formula E. When it's retirements, they do it the other way around. So this might be totally inverted. But either way, retirement doesn't really matter. He's getting 3 points, is Nico Muller, out of a maximum of 5. Could have been a lot more this weekend for Nico Muller, unfortunately, but it just wasn't to be. Yeah, a case of what could have been. But instead, it's damage again. And no points. And last but by no means least, we come to Sergio Sete Camara after crossing the line in 14th place, I believe. Yeah, he was disqualified for power overuse. He was well out of power. Second to last corner, he got 0% and then just floored it over the line. He thought, well, fuck it. Why not, eh? Why not indeed? Again, as mentioned, the ERT's very anonymous this race weekend. Once again, really struggling with the efficiency. As could be seen, couldn't even make the race for Sete Camara. Power overuse, chucked out of the race, disqualified. And here he is. So he's getting 4 points, though. 4 points out of a maximum of 5. Very, very anonymous weekend. Wasn't his fault at all that happened, really. Just, what can you do? What can you do? You're going to finish last anyway because you've run out of power, or you cross the line and have a bit of glory and wave to the fans after the flag and then get disqualified. What's it matter? His own Grand Prix. Didn't happen. Didn't work out like he was supposed to. But never mind. 4-2 Sete Camara. So there we have it then, guys. Those were the runners and riders of the Sao Paulo E-Prix. Let me know down below in the comments section, did I score any drivers too high, any too low? The updated standings with the scores I've just awarded are on the screen now for you to take a look at. See where your favourite driver is now. Did you expect them to get that score? Let me know in the comments below, as always. Love to have a chat with you in there. And yes, let's see how the season unfolds. But a couple of weeks' time, we are in Tokyo, which is going to be really, really interesting. A new circuit for all the teams and drivers. So maybe more of an even playing field for such as like the likes of Darl Vala and, of course, Nick De Vries still getting to grips with the Gen 3 era. Should we expect more from them? Maybe the powertrains that aren't as good, like the Mahindras. More of an even playing field. Maybe they can just find that setup tweak that works a little bit in their favour, even if their car isn't the most efficient. It's going to be an interesting one to find out, but Sao Paulo certainly delivered the goods this race, and it delivered an exciting Formula E race, which we've been lacking this season. So yeah, thank you, Sao Paulo. We'll see you again next year. That was a stunner. A massive thanks, as always, goes out to, of course, Dan Bartlett for providing me with the scoreboards that you see on your screen. Without him, this series would be more pointless than it already is. So I will see you all in a couple of weeks' time for the Tokyo E-Prix. If you're interested in Formula 1, I'll see you all next Monday at 6 p.m. for the Formula 1 Crawl Room. So it's all to play, it's all happening. There's seasons and races going aplenty now. The season is in full swing for both championships. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and as always, much love.